Hello, we're at the White House today, and I'm here with Dr. Anthony Harper. And, sir, you said you just got back from Israel.
I'm back from Israel, yes. Pretty intense experience in there. So.
Yeah, so what is going on in the... Because we know there's a big debacle about Netanyahu going far right. Is that still going on where they're moving everything to the way right?
The Biden administration does have concerns about that and has commented about the judicial reform efforts that were underway and the protests. So I'm there in Israel meeting with Israel leaders talking about the judicial reform issue with the Knesset member Simcha Rotman. It's on our YouTube channel. But also met with Prime Minister's digital manager, social media. His name is Hanania Naphtali. And met with Michelle Bachmann there, and many others, several other Knesset members. But this is a big concern for the Israel leaders, the Knesset, about foreign intrusion into the new government with Prime Minister Netanyahu. And there's been a lot of protests and billboards around Jerusalem and Tel Aviv portraying Prime Minister Netanyahu as a dictator. And so advocating for overthrow of the government. So this is a big concern that Israel has about foreign intrusion into the government to overthrow, basically.
Right. Now, with Israel, with the LGBT, what is, have they moved them from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem?
Well, what happened?
What was the talk?
I was in Jerusalem for the Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast event with Michelle Bachmann and other people from around the world that are supportive of Israel. But while I was there, this event was at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in Jerusalem. There was a gay pride parade in downtown in Jerusalem. The streets were closed off for 6 to 8 hour time period.
Wow!
And for this to happen in Jerusalem, the holy city, that triggered a lot of people being upset. I think about Muslim people being upset about it, Orthodox Jews people being upset, evangelical Christians around the world as well. And I need to know where the Prime Minister stands on that issue. If he objected, or what his opinion on all this happening, because this upset and angered a lot of religious people. Like I said, including Muslims. I mean, thinking about the Muslims in Saudi Arabia that were, I think, very furious as well.
Well, you cover a lot of the United States Christian media as well. So here in our country, with Biden as president, he has pushed a lot of the LGBT agenda. How is the church on your end reacting to that?
Well, I had an interview recently with a psychiatrist that he deals regularly with the children. He's a child psychiatrist. So he made some comments about the impact psychologically on children with the LGBTQ agenda, with transgender surgery, the drugs, how it affects their mental health issue. And so he had very serious concerns and reservations about all this. But he also makes comments physically about President Biden, about his health issues. Now, there's been a Dr. Ronnie Jackson, the previous White House physician, and he and other Congress people have been demanding a cognitive test for President Biden, and the White House is refusing on that matter. But the other issue that the psychiatrist dealt with me on the issue was Parkinson's disease for President Biden, that he might have.
I haven't heard that one.
So there's a Parkinson's website, parkinson.org, but there's symptoms there. So we're dealing with a lot of challenging issues with the psychiatrist, and his concerns. I've actually previously had an interview with another psychiatrist.
But what does that have to do with LGBT?
Well, they would say, if you look at the history, if you could watch my interviews with Dr. Terry Trudell, a psychiatrist from the state of Washington, also with Dr. Larry Banta, this child psychiatrist, they say that has significant issues to deal with LGBTQ issues, because the history, they go into the history of the American Psychiatric Association. What happened back in 1973?
Because that is your doctor.
I'm a doctor in psychology.
Yes, psychology.
But the history of this is actually 1973 is when the American Psychiatric Association removed homosexuality from the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. And when they did that, then all the mental health associations, the Counseling Association's professional, and the American Psychological Association, and the other mental health counselors, they went in support as well because of what the American Psychiatric Association did. So a lot of our audience is concerned that what the American Psychiatric Association did was that they legitimized the LGBTQ issues from their perspective, from the psychiatry community, and there's been things have changed a lot since their decision in 1973. But even prior to 1973, the LGBTQ community was very upset with the psychiatrists for having this in. They boycotted. They've been to events to harass some psychiatrists and actually broke into the Psychiatrist Association meetings. So it's very revealing to hear the history of what the psychiatrists are saying.
Well, if I could ask one more question.
Sure.
Okay. In Israel, we know that we have the United Nations moving forward with Agenda 2030. So the circles that you're in there in Israel, are they aware of that? Like, do they discuss the climate change agenda they have and the global ID coming and all of that?
I don't.
As far as Christians and.
I don't hear much of that, but I do hear about the UN concerns. But the Israel leaders really concerned about the Biden administration, the funding of the anti-Semitic UN agency, UNRWA, which stands for the United Nations Relief Works Agency. And then specifically, it was troublesome. There's an expert, David Bedin, on the UNRWA issue. It's IsraelBehindTheNews.com. But I met with him in the Knesset about this concern. The issue is that the textbooks in the UN schools portray Israel as Palestine. They portray Israel as the occupier, kind of fueling hatred for the Jewish people. And so it's very alarming that President Biden and the administration is giving money to this UN agency, not holding them accountable. And this UNRWA expert is actually asking for conditions on this matter. So if we're going to give money to the U.S. is going to give money to the UN agency UNRWA to condition it so that there will be no portrayal of Israel as the occupier. There will be no incitement to hate of the Jews in these UN textbooks, in their curriculum.
Well, did you realize that the Jewish Association in New York, the biggest Jewish organization in the country, actually asked them to remove the CARE, the Muslim, organization from anti-Semitism off the terrorist list? It's like, how can you ask, because a lot of the Christians are on alarm over the anti-Semitism bills because of the persecution mentioning the name of Jesus Christ.
Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with a lot of nervous actions that are actually, when I was in Israel, people upset about a Christian event, about Christians being there to convert the Jewish people. That was in the news a lot, but
which Paula White just spoke about that Christians should not convert Jews.
Right, I understand, and I think overall I would support not to be involved with converting anyone to anything. People have the religious freedom to share their religious beliefs, but as far as pressuring people or whatever, I think that's the Israeli people concerns the Orthodox Jews. But I do want to comment about CARE.
Yes.
About this issue and I'm the main reporter here at the White House regarding anti-Semitism, which I've been.
Oh, I didn't know
I've been exposing and reporting on anti-Semitism more than any other reporter, I think, here. But it was my questions about the anti-Semitic UN agency UNRWA that went viral in Jerusalem and got played on primetime television. It got the attention of a UN official that was upset and invited me to a meeting, which I refused because of his ties to Hamas. But so having
we know here in CARE, when I was living here over at the U.S. Capitol, how they would attack Christians there. So it just seems shocking that the main Jewish organization would ask for Muslims to be removed from the terrorist group.
Well, there's been a couple of news reports about it'd be kind of like asking, well, this is a strong word, but asking Hitler to join your combating anti-Semitism task force.
That is very confusing.
It is kind of a strong issue. I've heard that in news reports, but there have been a lot of people upset, I know, about having CARE involved with their track record because they're actively involved, from several news reports, they're actively involved with promoting anti-Semitism. So isn't that a condition that our audience, I think, would ask of the Biden administration, if you're going to be having a task force combating anti-Semitism, make there's conditions that you can't be involved with any anti-Semitism activity.
Well, how about this then? Maybe if they would add that if you believe in the name of Jesus, and if you believe that Jesus is the only way to heaven, which goes back to the converting deal, that they would not be in trouble as well, because the Christians feel like that their religion is under attack through these anti-Semites. That's where the battle is.
It is a real big battle, you know. And
I mean, if they're going to do it for Muslims, why not do it for Christians?
It should be fair across the board. It's talking about equal treatment in these matters.
Exactly.
So these are very serious issues regarding anti-Semitism in general, but anti-Semitism is really linked to anti-Israel sentiment. So that I was in Israel and Jerusalem in a hospital called Hadassah Hospital to deal with Israel as an apartheid state. You might have heard that from people in the news. Portraying Israel as occupier, the apartheid issue, but the African American people that I know of, and I think about South Africa, several news reports be offended because the apartheid in Africa was a lot different, where black people couldn't drink from, and we even have that in the U.S. where they couldn't drink from the same water fountain. They couldn't be in a certain area where white people were at. So we don't clearly have any true apartheid from that definition happening in Israel whatsoever, but in this hospital, Hadassah Hospital, by the way, you can see that interview on our YouTube channel, which is by the name Intermountain Christian News, but it's dispelling that myth that Israel is an apartheid state.
I got you. Can you explain to the church what in the world, when they say they don't want to convert, can you describe that? Because when you think of salvation in Christianity, they have to accept Jesus in their heart, and they have to be Christian. I mean, I don't see how. That is in a sense converting, because you're having to say Jesus is the only way to heaven, and you have to walk by grace with that.
Well, these are very, very sensitive issues in Israel, and Israel appreciates evangelical Christians a lot.
Yeah,
because of the tourism. I mean, a lot of Christians have been very supportive of Israel, continue to be. So they definitely don't want to, offend a lot of Christian people that have been so supportive of Israel. The Prime Minister actually responded to a Knesset member that was calling for making it illegal, for Christians to share their faith with Jewish people. And so the Prime Minister intervened and said, we're not going to have a law outlawing Christianity here.
So they can witness in Jerusalem, because I heard that.
Well, they can share, but there's a law specifically for underage, for adolescents, for minors, that there is a law that you can't proselytize.
Right,
the youth,
that's the word, right? Yes,
so,
that's the word.
And actually, LDS, Mormon people, in order for them to have their buildings there in Jerusalem, they had to agree not to proselytize as well.
Right. So they obviously then don't do religious freedom, because religious freedom is everybody can share their religion. And Jesus tells us, go therefore and win them.
Well, they're not saying that, Christians, there are Christian churches in Jerusalem and elsewhere in Israel, they do share their faith, with people. I don't know how they do that on television or whatsoever. They may be passing out gospel tracts or whatsoever, but they're really more concerned about minors, about underage, making that law is directed towards, they say protecting the youth from that.
Right.
And so, I would just say, I want to end with this, is for you to, go to our YouTube channel, which is Intermount Christian News, to see the latest things in Israel, these videos, and my encounters with the Prime Minister Netanyahu in questions and with other Israel leaders. So
thank you.
Great to talk with
Now
you.
listen, we was in here.
We were here several years ago.
Yeah. 5 years ago.
The days before COVID virus.
Yeah.